You're listening to the BBM Global Network with 25 years in broadcast audio and video production. Our passionate team creates content and marketing for the world of Internet Talk Radio. If you've got a passion, come join us at bbmglobalnetwork.com. The BBM Global Network. Your voice is now heard.
We all need self-expression. The most effective way to express ourselves is through words. But according to the Stuttering Foundation, close to 80 million people worldwide stutter today. This is Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. After years of practicing conventional speech therapy, Anna Deeter has pioneered a new and effective approach to this debilitating habit. So now, please welcome the host of Live Stutter-Free, Anna Deeter.
Happy Friday to everyone from Live Stutter-Free with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We are going to continue our weekly discussion about stuttering cure business and, most importantly, about the new profession called Etalon Speech Education, which I am so passionate about. And the word etalon, if you've never heard it, etalon stands for the norms, standard of measurement or perfection. Nothing is better than etalon because etalons have been created by Mother Nature or God. I will continue to disclose the truth about blocks and blockers. Stuttering is solved. This is a great message that I want to spread wild today to every struggling person on the planet because, yes, as you heard in the introduction, almost 80 million people worldwide stutter today because of believing something that is not true. The real cause and the mechanism of any form of stuttering, or they may call it stammering, they may call it cluttering, stumbling, or there are 300 other synonyms that they call this debilitating condition. The real cause and the mechanism of it has been discovered. It's determined, believe it or not, 20 years ago by a Russian independent scientist, academic Roman Alexeyevich Snishko, who doesn't speak English language. So I am Anna Deeter. I am just a medium, an interpreter of the revolutionary discovery. And once again, the real cause and the mechanism of any form of stuttering is a so-called block stupor. If you don't know the meaning of the word stupor, you can go back to the previous shows which are recorded on YouTube and on the website of BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. You can go back and listen the detailed explanation what these stupor blocks are. But today we are going to talk about the most precious possession we adults have in our life. Yes, I am referring to our precious children. By the way we raise them, take care of them, we adults determine our own future, the future of the whole existence of mankind, humanity. Depending on what we parents, teachers, or doctors fill their mind with today, we program the way our children live not just their own lives, but the lives of their children, of their grandchildren, of the generations to come. Please, dear listeners, do not underestimate the significance of your role as a parent, teacher, neighbor, counselor, filmmaker, farmer, whatever, fashion designer, or any other person who inevitably influences the development of a child, who inevitably programs our children to live their life. We adults program the lifestyle our children live. So our today's guest has agreed to this interview just 2 days ago. It is already 10 p.m. at his end of the world. His amazing, incredible family lives in Denmark, in Europe. And the time difference between Florida, where I'm coming from, and Denmark is 6 hours. He has had a whole day of intensive work, and most likely he's tired and needs already some rest. But when I asked him if he would be willing to join Live Stutter-Free and share his unique experience with you, dear listeners, he replied without any hesitation, yes, I can do this. Stefan is the father of a boy who has been blocked for 13 years of his entire young life by various, of course, adults in Denmark. Max, his son, was diagnosed with a severe form of stuttering, which, as you know, conventional professionals claim has no known cure. But Max's family has refused to accept such a lifetime sentence for their extremely intelligent child. And after years of diligently following all kinds of, frankly, ridiculous recommendations of various conventional and alternative speech professionals, they finally stumbled on the Etalon Speech Gymnastics. Both mom and dad did their thorough research to learn about this revolutionary scientific program, the urgent care or the first aid for the mind. Then the parents enrolled their child in the 3-day online program and went through it together with their son. And they freed him from his debilitating condition. Max's parents has accomplished something that various medical advisors have been insisting that it was not possible to accomplish. And before I introduce Stefan and let him answer my questions about how Max got blocked and who were his blockers, I want to take a moment to make a point. Please understand that we as a society have been misinformed and misled by the dark forces on the planet for a long time now. We believe and follow too many lies. When we come back, you will hear his amazing story. Stay tuned. You will hear something that you have never heard before. Talk to you in a bit.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
Live Stutter-Free with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network, and Tune In Radio is back. So before I introduce Stefan, the father of a 13-year-old boy who has been unblocked in only 3 days, and before I let him answer my questions about how his son got blocked and who were his blockers, I would like to make a point. Please understand that we as a society have been misinformed and misled by the dark forces on the planet for a long time now. We believe and follow too many lies. As the result, our children's health, both physical and mental, is in danger today. Our children are getting sicker and sicker. You don't need to be a medical professional to see that the majority of our children are on psychotropic drugs today. Their mental health is in danger. The existence of the whole humanity is on the edge. There is no time for dancing around the truth without hurting the feelings of those who still believe lies and teach these lies to our children and their parents. I know you speech professionals have a big heart, and I know that you genuinely want to help your clients who stutter, but the problem is your conventional, old-fashionable training. You do not have the skills to unblock any person who stutters. You have been trained to only block them. How? Let's find out right now. So let me invite an amazing man from Denmark. For a second, I forgot the name of the country where you, Stefan, live in. So are you there, Stefan?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
Hello,
Welcome to Live Stutter-Free. So could you please just introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Stefan. I'm living in Denmark with my family. I'm the CEO of a Danish tech company. But first of all, I'm the father of a former stutterer. Wow, feels great to say that.
That's right, former stutterer. Okay. And how much time did it take us to unblock your son?
Oh, actually, when I think about it, it took just a couple of hours, I think, actually. But
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of hours, but of course the program lasted for 3 days. Yes. So, but you know what? As a father, you just confirmed that I'm not just a ghost here, that what I'm doing and what I'm talking about is the truth. And people need to simply wake up today, awaken to the truth. However, let's go back to the beginning of the whole story about your incredible son. I mean, he's so intelligent, such a smart boy. He kind of appears much more mature than his age is. He's only 13. So when did you first learn that there was a problem with your son?
Actually, I think the kindergarten teachers were the one to notice it first. They came to us almost in panic and told us that we needed to have this meeting, this conversation about Magnus, because they had some worries about him. Then they called us to this meeting. They told us that he was not speaking right. He was a stutterer. And as they were taught, we had to do something about that right away. So we were called to another meeting where there was this speech consultant therapist. And Magnus, he just he went to be a part of the system, I think.
Yes.
He was
but Yeah, Stefan. But I want to emphasize. So first, the first blockers were the teachers, of course, because they didn't know what to do with this child. They just noticed that what did they notice? Do you remember? What did they say? What was abnormal about him?
They said he wasn't able to speak and that he was a stutterer. And they also said that this was not something they could handle. He had to be taken care of by a professional.
Exactly. See, this is all being taken care of by so-called professionals. And once again, of course, professionals are good people. Teachers are very good people. That's why they work with children. However, they are not trained to handle any difficulty when they see it in a child's speech development. So, number one, the kindergarten teachers simply blocked your child because they claimed that he was abnormal. He did something that others children didn't do, and he needed a professional help. Okay? So what happened after the second meeting with speech consultant?
Actually, we had several meetings because we were also confused. We didn't know much about stuttering. So we talked to them. We asked, what do we do to overcome this? How do we help him? And actually, I remember this very clearly. The first thing they were really trying to teach us was, she said it exactly like this. We cannot cure him. Once a stutterer, always a stutterer. But we can learn him. We can teach him to talk in a different way, actually to stutter in another way, so it wouldn't be so hard for him. That was the first thing they actually said to us.
So let's emphasize. So the first speech consultant, or whatever they call them, speech professionals, they told you right away, once a stutterer is always a stutterer, and the only way to handle this problem is to change his personality, to change the way he speaks, right?
Exactly.
Because speaking is the way we express ourselves. Each and every speaking style is unique. When you change your style of speaking, you inevitably will change a person's personality. And it is not normal. It is basically extremely harmful. Okay, so do you remember what happened after your son started attending this whatever speech therapist? What happened?
In the beginning, nothing really happened. I had to be there for the first classes, and I remembering, I just thought it was so stupid. They had different techniques. I don't know, one they called like extraction or something like that, where he had to prolong the vowels in a very weird way. Then they tried to teach him something called jumping, where he had to make 3 fake stutter sound before he said consonants and something like this.
Okay, Stefan, yeah, we're coming to commercial break. When we come back, this is extremely important. I want you to share all these techniques and what the results were when you diligently applied them, followed recommendations, okay? So after the commercial break, we will continue this discussion. Talk to you in a bit.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
Live Stutter-Free with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network, and TuneIn Radio is back. So we are communicating with Stefan from Denmark. He's the father of a 13-year-old child who was unblocked just 2 days ago in 3 days of the Etalon Speech Gymnastics, he dropped his lifelong stuttering. And Stefan is explaining how this unique program worked for his child. But most importantly, he is telling us how his son got blocked when he was in a kindergarten, and some professional speech experts started working with his son. So yeah, you were listing some techniques, extraction. What was about jumping?
Jumping was a way to get over some of the hard consonants. He had to make 3 fake stuttering, like pa, 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 and then the word,
And how old was he back then? How old?
Um,
Around, roughly.
it's just before he started going to school. I don't know, 6 years old, I think.
Can you imagine a child is 6 years old and the speech therapist is teaching a child to stutter? Pa, 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 ka, 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 whatever. It's just crazy. It's bad enough that this is something that is really not easy for a child to even comprehend. But it is simply destroying a child's ability to remember, to memorize and remember whole words, because this is how people speak. Normal people speak in whole words. They never break them in parts. But anyway, so you mentioned during the break that something was even more ridiculous. What was that?
When he started going to school, he was invited to this weekend school, something like this, for stutterers. And it was actually a very, very bad experience for him. Max is a very good soccer player. He's always been that. So he has always had a high self-esteem when it comes to sports and all the physical activities. So he got to this weekend school, and the whole subject and everything they were talking about and doing with these children was to have them accept that they were stutterers and work on their self-esteem, because it was just like, you are here, you are a stutterer, you have a low self-esteem. Now you need to accept that you are a stutterer. You need to work on your self-esteem, nothing else. And he came home, he told me that they were sitting in this circle, stuttering together. They had different words, and then they had to sit and actually on purpose stutter a lot of different words, just to accept that they actually were stutterers. So that was actually a very horrible experience for him.
So how many times did he go to this kind of meetings?
Oh, luckily, he only went once. He didn't want to participate again.
So see, you did something right raising your child. I actually mentioned it to you already when we were working with Max, because he's a pretty rational child, just like the whole family. Anyway, so what happened next? So kindergarten is over, he went to school, and I guess he learned how to stutter already, okay.
Yeah, and I guess just then the public program kicked in, and then they had this, the speech therapists, well, I don't know what to call it, union. They have a cooperation with the schools, and then every week, instead of going to class, he went to this speech therapist, where they continued to work on these different techniques, if you will call them that.
And were the techniques any different, or the same techniques?
Almost the same. He had to read different words, look at pictures, and say all the words using these new techniques. And I remember he came home. He was crying. He said, "We sat for 1 hour, and I had to say this sound." So after the first 10 times, he didn't want to go anymore. But as he got a little older, he started to watch a lot of YouTube videos on stuttering. And I think maybe the worst thing, he saw a couple of shows, I think from it's a UK program, I think, a former singer.
Yeah, you mentioned it during the course. It was Maguire program, right?
Exactly. The whole program focused on breathing techniques. I think maybe some were helped a little bit in some way, but it was still a lot of hard work every time they opened the mouth. And we noticed that Magnus, he saw these shows and he started to do a lot of weird breathing afterwards. And I think he picked up on it, because that was also one of his big problems. He was blocked on his breathing also. And I think it comes from watching different YouTube videos.
Thank you so much, Stefan, that you just brought this up, because yes, there are so many free advisors. It's free. You just push the button and you watch these free YouTube videos, and you just download in your head all these lies that only harm your health, mental health, and even physical health. It is really dangerous to follow most of those, I would say 99.9% of the advisors on YouTube that you see. They are harmful because they all are based on simply not understanding what stuttering really is. And for example, with your son, you mentioned that it helped a little bit, but he started breathing in an awkward way, right? So we will talk about breathing techniques and their effect when we come back from the commercial break. This is amazing information. If you stutter, or if you are a person who works with those who stutter, stay tuned. Talk to you in a bit.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
Welcome back to Live Stutter-Free with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Before the break, we were discussing various techniques that Max, a 13-year-old severe stutterer, 13-year-old extremely intelligent boy who has been diagnosed with this severe form of stuttering, he was forced to follow all kinds of techniques, right? So where did we stop, Stefan? What were we talking about?
I think we were talking about breathing.
Right. Okay. So basically, when Max was in school, they were teaching him to breathe, all kinds of breathing techniques. And then he was encouraged to go online and begin watching various free YouTube videos about how he should kind of straighten out his breathing, which we humans have no business to work with. Breathing is something natural given to us by God. Even if you dive under the water and order yourself to stop breathing, you will begin to breathe, right? Because this is natural. This is written in our DNA. When we sleep, do we control our breathing? No. So the bottom line, Max watched these breathing techniques that Maguire program teaches people. And Maguire program may have nice people, genuine people who genuinely want to help each other. But this program is also built on lack of understanding that really what causes stuttering really. That stuttering is a simple set of blocks that must be simply removed from a person. And after they are removed like handcuffs, this no training, no cure, no breathing techniques, no breathing exercises will ever be needed. Never. So as the result of doing a lot of breathing exercises, because I remember Max mentioned that he was doing these breathing exercises 2 hours a day. Did he really do that? Steph?
Oh, I don't know. I think I told you that he found these YouTube videos himself. I was just corrected during the commercial by my wife. Actually, we found them. We showed them to him.
Right.
He was for himself mostly doing these exercises that he saw in these videos, and his breathing. I think he was desperately trying to do just something. Because what he did at the speech therapist clearly didn't help him. So he was also searching for solutions, as were we. And I think we got very caught up in it. And the more that we tried to find solutions, study, read things, the more he got caught up in it also. And especially the last year has been a very tough year for him as a stutterer. He changed school. He changed the soccer team and got new friends. 13 girls are very interesting and everything. And being a stutterer was all of a sudden a very, very big part of his personality. And it was hard for him to handle. And he was trying to do all these techniques. We could see it, and just didn't work for him. He was very unhappy, sad. Kept to himself a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what happens after a person is convinced that there is something wrong with him, that he is abnormal, he has an incurable sickness called stuttering. Of course, such person grows up becoming an introvert. He just becomes, he just stays more on his own. He stops communicating with people, and he becomes, in a way, kind of like, how do you call it, schizophrenia. He just paranoid, because that's what happens when you cannot express yourself. You become quiet, you begin observing people instead of expressing yourself. And when you're observing, you begin guessing. Why is he looking at me like this? Are they talking about me? That's what happens as a person who stutters grows older and he's still blocked. He stops speaking much. He prefers to be silent most of the time. And of course, how can anyone develop any speaking skills when he or she is not speaking? So Stefan, could you please tell a little bit, okay, 1 second, I have a phone call here. Okay, could you please tell a little bit about how did stuttering impact his personality? I mean, yeah, I know you said he changed schools and the soccer team. So what did you notice in him?
First of all, I would like to say, luckily, he had success in his sports. So that was, he channeled all his energy into his sports because he was successful there. He plays soccer. He's a striker in one of the best teams in Denmark. He's on a elite program and everything. But that is also one of the places we could see that he was affected, because his frustration on the fields was there were clearly he was affected that he wasn't able to communicate properly with his teammates, and when he had the evaluation with his coach, he never got to say what he felt and what he wanted it to do. So of course he was frustrated, and this especially this last year, I could see things got harder and harder for him. They did more and more presentations in class, and he was just frightened. He was scared of these presentations, and I think his self-esteem just fell some notches.
His self-esteem started to go, and this is the worst thing that can happen to a teenager. I am talking about it all the time because I have had students who were about to commit suicide. They couldn't handle it. It was felt like a debilitating and just a life-threatening condition that they went through. We're coming to commercial break again. So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Stefan from Denmark, the father of a 13-year-old boy who has been recently unblocked in only 3 days. Talk to you in a bit.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
Live Stutter-Free with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network, and TuneIn Radio is back. We are going, and not the last long segment, and Stefan, I would like you to tell a little bit again. So we stopped at the self-esteem of your child that started to go, right?
Yeah.
So you felt as a parent that you kind of were failing your child, right? Did you have this feeling?
Of course. I always tried to raise him to, to be strong, to be outgoing, even though it's very hard when you stutter. But I could see it had a huge effect on him, especially the last year. And then you ask what happened.
Yeah.
We discovered Anna Deeter, actually.
Hey, good for you. When did you first stumble on the program, on our program?
Actually, it's I don't know, about 2-3 months, I think.
Yeah, so this is about how much time it takes to study everything. And tell me honestly, what was your first reaction?
I'm from Denmark, and when you try very hard to advertise and tell how great everything is, we Danes have a natural, what do you call it? Suspicion, exactly. But as I saw more,
which is Stefan, which is normal. Skepticism is totally normal. It's not just for you, but the whole world. Of course, it's normal.
Yeah.
But what happened?
But my wife Vivi, she really believed in it. Also because she always told me that this cannot be the way. This cannot be the way, and no, he's not sick, and he's not sick for life. So she has been searching all the time also for something logical. And that is what she convinced me. This is logical. And then I looked more and more into it, and as I saw more and more videos of your former students, I came to the point where I said to myself, okay, it cannot be worse than what we have tried. And I looked more and more into it, and I was more and more convinced that this was the right angle, just to learn how to speak normal.
Yeah.
It sounds so easy, but yeah.
Stefan, I want you to tell to the listeners, what did you really do? I mean, what was your research? Because people research in different ways. And I get a lot of messages when people write to me, I've heard so many bad things about you. I've read so many bad reviews about you. So some people simply learn about, but others, instead of reading about the messenger, they just go and study the message. Okay? So I want you to tell to the listeners, what was your research?
Actually, I started to read a lot of medical texts, trying to find the explanation, the scientific explanation of why you stutter. And as I read more and more, I came to realize that actually there were no rational explanation. There were a lot of theories.
Yep.
And I also saw a lot of some of the websites were almost like watching a witch hunt. But I think it was pretty easy to see that it was not because they despise you, but it was because there were other interests involved, I think. So that also actually tricked me a little bit to try this.
Yeah, I like how you put, because there were some interests, other interests involved. And I'm gonna put it straight, because as I said in the beginning, there is no time to tiptoe around, people's feelings, how not to hurt someone. It's very straightforward. It's a multi-billion-dollar business called Stuttering Cure. If masses, millions of people all of a sudden are unblocked and no one is sick, who's gonna need their cure? It's a business. It's a criminal business, of course. It's unfair business. And I call it criminal not because of the people that are involved. No, I'm using the word criminal because what we adults are doing is hurting our children. It's hurting millions of people. There is no time to feel sorry for the millions of speech professionals, pathologists, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists, and other representatives of medical profession. That's the kind of straightforward understanding of what interests are involved. So, did you study the message? What did you study? Did you just see my videos, or you maybe read the books?
I read some of the books. I think my wife read all the books. And then we decided to let Magnus read some of it also. And he was caught up in it right away. He just wanted to get started. Yeah, he wanted to get started right away.
Wow, it's interesting. I wish I asked him if he read my book. Let me just mention the main book that I love the most, because this is just the way it happened. It's the book about one of my former students, and he, by the way, is the one who I have interviewed a couple shows ago. His name is Hussein. He lives in Finland. He was 18-year-old. He didn't speak English. He learned English language just to take the course. He got a job. He earned money for taking his course. So it was an incredible conversation that we had. I and him, we were conversing with him for 2 years over private messaging on Facebook. And that's what the book is about. It's called One Lonely Climb to Success. If you have a child who is conscious enough to read and understand, give him or her this book to read. You will be happy you did. So we're coming to the commercial break, and after we come back, I will provide more information about how you can enroll in this unique revolutionary program online on Skype and have your child liberated freed from stuttering. Talk to you in a bit.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
And we are back, Live Stutter-Free, with your host Anna Deeter on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And I just laughed and laughed right now during the commercial break. Why? Because Stefan told me the story. Today, Max went first day to school, okay? And here is what happened. Stefan, go ahead and tell this story.
Yeah, actually, the teacher responsible for the class, he had them the third hour today. And when he got to the class, the two prior teachers, the one teaching German language and the one teaching Danish literature, they came to him and said, "This is outrageous. This is crazy. Magnus Max, he's talking all the time. He won't shut up. He makes much too much noise. So you had to write home to his parents." And the funny part is that I wrote him the day before yesterday that if Magnus came home with a note telling that he was too loud and talking too much during the classes, we were going to have a big party at home. So he just wrote me, "You can open the champagne now."
Congratulations! Yes!
Talking and talking, and he won't shut up.
Good, good. He should never shut up. He should continue talking because your son is such an amazing and intelligent boy. He has a lot to express, a lot to tell to this world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure that together, only together, we can awaken people from this nightmare called stuttering sickness, which doesn't exist in reality. So I have a few minutes left to the end of the show, and I would like to give you, dear listeners, some information about how you can learn about the message. Of course, you can go and read what they say about Anna Deeter, but I promise it is not that interesting. I'm just a medium. I am just an interpreter of a great message. The mystery of stuttering is solved, and your child can be unblocked only in 3 days over the, of course, intensive work. If your child is young, it's gonna be mostly, of course, your training, but if your child is already over, I would say, 7 years old, then he can do it easily himself, but of course you have to be present. It's always the parents' training. If you stutter yourself, you also are blocked, and you can also get unblocked in only 3 days. Go to the website of our non-profit organization called Speech Academy Etalon International by Roman Alexeyevich Snishko, and you can download the free books, e-books, One Lonely Climb to Success and A Tale of Two Geniuses in Stuttering. Read this information, study it. The website is www.livestutterfree.com. Go check it out, read, study carefully the information, study the message, and don't listen to those who have no experience with the Etalon program. They don't know what is it, because Etalon science is a new scientific development. It's a revolutionary discovery that changes lives. I cannot wait to talk to you next Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern. Talk to you in a week.
You've been listening to Live Stutter-Free with your host, Anna Deeter. Listen each week and learn how to become unblocked, liberated, and live stutter-free with host Anna Deeter.
You've been listening to the BBM Global Network. The ideas, views, and opinions of this broadcast are those of the participants of the program and are not necessarily the ideas, views, and opinions of the BBM Global Network Company.